Michelle Poremski.
And I'm Pastor Ron Ween.
And you're listening to 180 Your Life, the grief empowerment podcast that helps you craft a life you love after loss. So today we are talking about the Casserole Killer, Part 4. So in Part 4 of this 5-part podcast series, we're going to talk about coordinating with the coroner and coordinating childcare. We did touch on that really in our last podcast briefly about coordinating with the coroner and making sure that you get the right number of death certificates so that you can submit them to different people who, you have bills that you're paying, insurance companies for life insurance, for certain credit cards that you will need to submit a death certificate, and you probably need at least 20 of them, so that sometimes these companies want an original death certificate with the original seal on it, and you don't want to have to wait weeks to get more death certificates delivered. Secondly, I think it's really important to talk about the process, like if you have life insurance. If you're looking at life insurance, you want to, read your policy, number one, and be aware of what your rights are. Like, unfortunately it's odd to say this, but in my life insurance policy, I didn't even know that there was a suicide clause. And it was a 2-year clause, and we had it for 3.5 years, the life insurance policy. So when my husband passed away, we did have provision. And I would never suggest that anyone would ever use that kind of provision in that way.
Yes.
But at the same time, you need to be aware of what your policy is and what your rights are if the unforeseen happens. And what the process is. So usually what will happen is that if it's an unexpected death or if there's a death, the coroner, the body goes to be possibly for an autopsy, and then the coroner will create the death certificate, and then that goes to your funeral home, and then you can request through the funeral home a certain number of death certificates, and you have to pay for them, and then they get delivered to you. And then you use those death certificates to connect with your life insurance company, with different credit card companies or different loan companies to close those accounts.
Exactly.
Right. And the process, like for me, when I got life insurance, it wasn't a few weeks, it was several months. So what can happen is that you may, if the main breadwinner or one of the main breadwinners has passed away, friends may need to set up a GoFundMe account to help with the interim of lack of income for a few months, because it
provide a bridge. Yes.
To provide a bridge, exactly.
Yes.
So that's what I'm thinking in terms of coordinating with the coroner. And then I think another thing that we really need to talk about is childcare. And I'm not just talking about babysitting. This is about children who are going through loss, especially if it's the loss of a parent or an immediate family member. And what can happen in the bustle of grief. You've got people coming in from out of town. You've got a lot of activity as you're preparing for the memorial service, and the kids can get lost. The kids, and sometimes meals are missed because everyone is in chaos, in triage mode. They're shocked. It's like a triage situation. And you really need to designate someone to be aware of the children, so the children are getting proper food, not just candy and cookies and cake. That they're getting the proper food, that the schedule is maintained so that they're going to bed at a certain time, because children need the order. I mean, you're a licensed therapist. What suggestions do you have, Ron, for childcare?
Well, when you have childcare, you've got to have people that aren't as traumatized as you are with the death. You've got to have someone who's thinking clearly so that they don't say things to children that will come back to haunt them. things like, well, you've got to be strong for your mom or your dad.
Yeah, like you can't cry.
Yeah,
That's not
don't
okay.
cry. Yeah, that's horrible.
That's
because
not natural. You have to cry.
Yeah.
Something horrible has happened.
Yes.
It's okay to cry a lot.
Right, exactly. And they've got to be aware that the kids need a break from it.
Yes.
You cannot have that kind of intensity all the time with a child.
Right. They play and grieve and play and grieve. So they actually need to go to the park. They are still children, so they need to go outside, they need to play, and then there'll be times that they're ready to grieve. And doesn't that grief come out? Sometimes it comes out as aggression.
Yes.
It comes out as misbehavior.
Yes.
What do you do? Because you want to give space for the child to grieve, but you don't want to reinforce bad behavior.
You understand it, and then once the episode is over, you talk with them. What was going on? How are you feeling? What's just happening? And then you normalize it for them. It just says, well, I would be very upset if what just happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And just normalize what they're feeling, what they're saying, because sometimes they just don't say anything. They just sit in silence. That's the other one. And sometimes it's okay to just sit down with the kid, and eventually the kid might say something to you, or they just might cry, or they just some littler ones will get in your lap. Mm-hmm. So be open to that. And when you're choosing someone who's providing that kind of child care, choose someone who's going to be compassionate with this child, who understands a little bit of what they're going through, who isn't there to fix them or to do anything except help them grieve, help them eat, help them sleep, help them do the basic things, because they're not capable of doing that right now. They've just had one whale of a wallop in this grief process, and they don't have adult-like coping skills developed yet. So you're basically having this awful thing that just happened on top of a child who cannot begin to process it. So you need other adults around them to help them process.
When my oldest daughter, because I was pregnant with one when my husband died, and then my other was almost 3, my oldest daughter did not leave my side for 90 days. I mean, I did not do one thing by myself for 90 days.
Oh, yeah.
Because she said to me one time, I'm afraid you're going to disappear like Daddy, which just broke my heart, because for her, Daddy just disappeared. Right. And she didn't want her other parent to disappear, so I just accepted it. If I was in the shower, she wanted to be, she was right outside the shower curtain holding one hand. I was like, okay, it's okay. Or she had one hand like in that shower while I was there. Hey, that's okay, because it was a major loss. What are other things that people should not say to children? You're right. We want to fix it. We want to make it okay. Grief is messy. It's a major transformational process, this journey, and it's not going to be fixed in a day.
Right.
There's nothing that you can say to fix it. You can only walk through this journey with them to help them transform in their own time.
Yes. Well, the one thing that you mentioned, you were alluding to, is the phrase, you're going to have to take care of your mommy or your daddy now.
No.
Now, you're talking about a child that doesn't have any coping skills, who just has been wiped out, and you're asking them to do adult function at this level. And
they're hurt. They've lost a major, it could be a parent. They've lost someone, or it could be a sibling, God forbid.
Absolutely.
And now the child has to take care of the parent. That is way too much pressure, and that robs them of their childhood, doesn't it?
Exactly. And a lot of mental health and substance abuse problems come out of being told that they had to do something they could not possibly do, or not possibly do right. And so they have being a child, and they've got this raising their siblings or taking care of business as if they were a spouse or semi-spouse or pseudo-spouse even. And they couldn't do anything except fail at it. So they figure they're failures because they weren't able to do what they were told to do after mom or dad died.
Right. So saying you have to take care of your parent now, let's not say that,
Yeah,
right?
that's not a good idea.
Or, God just needed your parent in heaven.
No.
No. Don't try to fix it. Just try to be there.
Be there, comfort them, provide for them, make sure they're fed, make sure they sleep. Just sit next to them.
And listen.
Yes.
It's so hard and uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you want to fix, you want to make like it's all going to be okay. And that was comforting for me, for people to tell me that Jason was in heaven. Absolutely. Because I knew that he was.
Yes.
But to have them say, well, God just needed another flower in his garden. No. He's got enough flowers. He's got a bunch of flowers. He didn't need the father of my children.
Right.
No. Don't try to fix it. Just try to be there and help in practical ways and
Right.
listen. And you know what? If you say something wrong, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
Just say you're sorry. I'm sorry. You know what? I don't know what to say in this situation. I just want to be here for you. And just showing up, that's like 90% of the battle.
Yes.
Just showing up, being in community and connection. That's what's important.
Yeah, don't run away from the grieving.
Right.
Yeah, show up and be there. And you don't have to say a whole lot.
Right. And you know what? There are organizations like here in Atlanta, katesclub.org, KATESCLUB.org. That's an organization for children who've lost a parent or a sibling. And I got to tell you, I would send people to Kate's Club, but I didn't actually go myself because I was like, I don't need your yaya group for sadness. And that's not what it was. Boy, was I mistaken. And until my daughter, my oldest daughter, she started asking questions about her father's death. And when she asked me if he intended to die, I had to decide whether or not I was going to tell her the truth. And I did at that moment. I figured if she's old enough to ask, she's old enough to know, and that we would deal with the fallout. I didn't want her to ever think that I would lie to her.
Oh, yeah.
And her resulting anger and frustration drove us to Kate's Club. And because we were there at 6 years old, it helped us process our grief in a healthy way, in a productive way, in a way that we didn't have to be afraid of the elephant in the room. It became part of the landscape of our lives,
Right.
in a way that we leverage our loss into leadership to help others. And my children do it too. So that's the important element of sometimes children who are going through loss, they may be the only child in their whole school that's going through that kind of a loss, like the loss of a parent or a sibling. And they need to be with other children and play with other children who get that kind of loss. They're not going to talk about it all the time, but if they need to, they have the friends who will understand, and they won't feel isolated. So look for those kind of communities,
Right.
for those kind of groups in your community. It is vital. And of course, now we go to Kate's Club. We love Kate's Club. I may have a group for widows, but my children go to Kate's Club because they need that community of children who understand that kind of loss and who have people who are experts in helping children through loss. So make sure to look for those communities and connect with them because they're going to empower your grief journey in a way you could never have imagined.
Yes.
So I think that, making sure that the children have a schedule, that they have food, that they have people to listen to them, not try to fix the
them,
problem,
yes.
play with them, and to connect them with communities that understand their kind of loss from a child's perspective. I think these are really wonderful steps to help empower loss.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all we have for today. In our final series for week 1, the grief cheat sheet, the first week top 10 list, we're going to be covering designating someone to prep clothes for memorial service and talking further about how kids can play and connect. So thank you so much for joining with us.
Yes.
If you'd like to learn more, you can visit us at 180 Your Life. That's 180yourlife.com. You can sign up for or subscribe to our grief classes. We have a whole list of empowering video-based professional broadcast quality grief courses that you can access. We have a whole year's worth of grief classes for women. We have cooking courses, healthy eating, healthy exercising, all for only $8 a month. And your $8 helps support this kind of programming that we're creating, and widow empowerment meetings and exercise classes. Also, if you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can visit us at 180yourgrief.org, and you can make a tax-deductible donation there. Just click on the button that says donate. God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. Once again, to turn tragedy to triumph through health, hope, and healing after loss, join us for 180 Your Life.
Take care.